Grief is something that I have wrestled with a large majority of my life, and I think most of you do. I think most of us are grieving at any given moment, regardless of what season of life we're in. We might be grieving an old version of ourselves, outcomes that we were attached to, old identities. I remember whenever I was grieving the loss of the beliefs that I was heavily programmed with as a child. My view of the world, my lens of seeing things, my ideas of God. When I started to realize how small they were, and they didn't fit into this little box anymore, I went through a time of very deep grief. I just didn't know what it was at the time. And regardless of what you might be going through, what you might be grieving, it's very easy to get that sense when you're letting go of something and you have that pain. It's very easy to feel like I'm the only one that feels this way. But I think that the collective human consciousness is in a state of grief right now. We're all grieving something. It could be a breakup. It could even be old versions of yourself that were harmful to you. I was talking to a guy in the Conscious Men community. We were on a call, and he had finally been making strides with letting go of addictions to pornography, which that's a vice that holds so many men back from their truest selves. But he found that all this self-sabotage was coming to the surface, and it seemed to be rooted from that thing. And then I had this aha moment of when I was going through that process of letting go of my old vices, video games, pornography, the things that I knew were holding me back from becoming the best version of myself. I had this sense of sadness. I had found comfort in those things for years. They were like a friend that I could always go to whenever I needed to just turn things off. And it was very reliable. It was always there for me. And once I broke free from those vices, there was this bizarre period where I had to grieve letting go of that. And obviously there's different levels to this. It's not going to be the same as grieving the death of a family member, but all of it is valid. And all of it needs to be acknowledged and worked through. A lot of us men have this tendency to push things down. Those feelings of grief come up. We can numb it with alcohol, pornography, video games, anything to distract us from that feeling of grief. But when you allow yourself to feel it and to let go of whatever it is you're grieving, it creates room and space for the newest version of you to emerge. And that version of you is the higher version, your God self, your higher consciousness, whatever you want to call it. And it's always whispering, it's always trying to give you opportunities to create space for it. And that's why I talk so much about quitting vices. That is the single most significant thing I've ever done for my life, was ridding myself of all of those things that were holding me back, that I knew I was using as medication, as medicine, to numb the pain. But sitting with these things, allowing yourself to grieve in whatever form that takes, if you have to sob uncontrollably, if you just have to maybe speak to those people in your life from your past, I miss you, I love you, I forgive you, whatever it is you need to do. And this, as a man, has given me so much power in my life. It has allowed me to face things head on. It's allowed me to have intentionality and just conscious awareness with the actions that I'm taking in my life. Once you face these root things, that's why I talk about meditation so much. Fight the urge to go out drinking. If you're about to sit down and watch a movie because you're just feeling this discomfort and you want relief from it, try just sitting there, even if it's for 10 minutes. Look within. Think of yourself as a child. Allow yourself to time travel back to that little kid and be present with that little kid in the past with your present self, with who you are right now. If your past self as a kid had someone in their life who could say and do and give the exact presence that that child version of yourself would have needed, what would that have looked like? Become that person for yourself, for your family, and for the world. And it's a process. I know this, you know this. And as you start to heal and do this work and overcome grief, you're going to be able to look other people in the eye and help them if that's something that you desire. Some of the things that I had to grieve that I didn't know I had to grieve was old version of Ryan who had an emotional attachment to video games. I grew up heavily immersed in video games. That was such a comfort for me. It was such a loyal friend. It was something that could distract me from the inner turmoil and noise and wounding. It was always there. I could always immerse myself in that. I had to grieve when my marriage ended. I had to grieve the idea of a traditional family. I wanted my son. Ever since I was a little kid, I always wanted my children to have a traditional home where they had a loving masculine father and a loving feminine mother, and they lived in the same household and they grew together. That was something that I was very attached to. And when things didn't play out that way, in my meditation, I realized that that was something I had to grieve. This ideal future that I had my whole life. A lot of it was rooted in religion. A lot of it was rooted in fundamentalist Christianity, that in order to be a grounded, righteous man, that you had to have this traditional household. And I think there is still something beautiful about that, but I had to let it go. I had to examine, why was I attached to this specific outcome? Would I be who I am today if things had played out differently? Honestly, by having my marriage end, it became a catalyst to a lot of growth that needed to happen, that I would have resisted otherwise out of fear of trying to force this family unit to stay together even though I wasn't in alignment with my ex. And there was a deep sense of grief that came to the surface when I started to sit with that. And when you finally allow yourself to feel the grief, whatever it may be for you, and it comes to the surface, and you feel what you need to feel, maybe you cry, maybe you let go of certain ideals and outcomes, it just creates space for your newer version to come through, and it makes it a lot easier to forgive people and to forgive your past, because resentment and forgiveness will fuck you up like nothing else. So oftentimes when I speak or touch on the idea of forgiveness or resentment, it's really for you. It's that way you're not carrying that heaviness around with you for the rest of your life. I don't remember where I heard this. I feel like it was a movie, but someone said that like unforgiveness, like that shit causes cancer. And I believe there's truth to that. The way that it affects your body, the way that it affects your demeanor and how you carry yourself. And I'm not talking about complaining. I'm not talking about going around obsessing over the past, being like, oh, there's this and that, and just like complaining about it. I'm talking about if there's some heavy rooted things from your past that you haven't given yourself time to grieve and haven't allowed yourself to do that, then it's still there. And it will not go away until you finally sit with it, allow yourself to properly grieve, forgive the past, let go of old expectations and outcomes and old versions of yourself to make space for the new to come in. I was very attached with the idea of having a very successful music career, to be in one of the top 1% as music artists. And I've had a lot of successes with music on paper, like more than what most people would have, but it didn't live up to the expectations and the standards that I had for myself. But looking back now, all of the things that I learned about myself, how to cultivate my creativity and creative tastes, this YouTube channel would not exist if it wasn't for that time. And it's funny to see, as I have energetically been letting go of those past things and the obsession with certain outcomes and certain results, it's been amazing to see how this channel has unfolded and to see how the community, the Conscious Men community, has been birthed from this channel. I get to talk with dozens of guys every single day, and we get to talk about these things that I'm talking to you right now. Men who are actually facing these things, letting themselves deal with their grief and past traumas, things that they've never let themselves touch on before. And if that's something that interests you, if you're looking for a community of men where you can talk about some real shit, be a little bit vulnerable, face these past traumas and demons that you might be dealing with, in order to get to the other side of it, then I want you to click the link in the description and check it out. It's a whole community of guys improving themselves, striving towards becoming the best versions of themselves mentally, physically, spiritually. I just launched a fitness course in there called the Body Transformation Course. So if you're looking to finally get into the best shape of your life that you feel like is in alignment with who you truly are, we do 2 to 3 Zoom calls a week. So if that interests you, check it out. But all that being said, the one takeaway that I want you to get from this video, regardless, is that whatever you're experiencing in your grief, just know that you're not alone. Humanity as a collective whole, all of us individually are either wrestling and facing our grief or running away from things that we haven't allowed ourselves to grieve yet. So lean into it, face it. There's healing on the other side. And when that happens, it allows for your higher self, your true self to emerge. And ultimately, that's what you want deep down. You want to just be your highest self. And that will ultimately be what impacts the world. But that's it, just a quick rambling on grief. You are loved, you matter, and you've barely scratched the surface of what you're capable of. I'll talk to you soon.
It's never enough. Sometimes you need a hand to hold, someone who won't let you go. Give me something real, something I can feel. I'm changing, never lost my head. I love you, but I'm seeing red. There's nothing left but who I am. I just wanna be okay, 'cause I'm tired of being afraid. There's nothing I